This is Daily Armenia, CivilNet's daily news digest. Here's what you need to know today. An unspecified number of anti-government protesters and police were injured in Yerevan today after law enforcement used flash grenades on crowds outside parliament. Bagrat Galstanyan, the archbishop and leader of an ongoing protest movement, was demanding a meeting with Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan to discuss the peaceful conditions for his resignation. Galstanyan had previously told protesters that today would be the day they achieved their goal of ejecting Pashinyan from office, who he said must not be allowed to leave the building. A large police force faced off with demonstrators outside Parliament, which had been surrounded with barbed wire in anticipation for the protest. Flash grenades were used in order to disperse the crowd away from the building shortly before 8 p.m. There are said to be wounded among both police and protesters. At least 60 protesters have been detained so far. Meanwhile, in another sign of tensions running high, a scuffle also broke out inside Parliament between ruling party and opposition members. Earlier during the session, Pashinyan said changes to Armenia's constitution cannot be part of the negotiation process with Azerbaijan. He called renewed attempts by Azerbaijan to make constitutional changes a precondition for signing a normalization deal, a torpedoing of the peace process, and an attempt to meddle in Armenia's internal affairs. Pashinyan has stated in the past he is open to amending the constitution, but made clear today that it would only be in the context of democratic reforms. Pashinyan also echoed remarks by Foreign Minister Ararat Mirzoyan earlier this week that the text of a peace treaty is ready to be signed. Armenia and the United States have agreed to upgrade their relations from a strategic dialogue to a strategic partnership, a deeper format of cooperation that the United States already has with Georgia and Ukraine. In a joint statement yesterday after wide-ranging talks, Armenian Foreign Minister Ararat Mirzoyan and U.S. Assistant Secretary of State James O'Brien said specific details will be released in the coming months, and noted Armenia's aspirations for closer cooperation with the West. This follows a landmark summit in April between Armenia's Prime Minister, the U.S. Secretary of State, and the head of the European Commission, which ended with pledges of hundreds of millions of dollars of additional assistance for Armenia. These programs cover everything from diversifying the economy and energy sector to defense cooperation and justice reforms. We are interested in exploring further cooperation opportunities for Armenia's defense transformation, said Foreign Minister Mirzoyan of the new round of talks. Expanding Armenia's energy independence was another important point of discussion. As of now, Armenia relies on the Soviet-era Metsamor nuclear plant, which gets its fuel from Russia, for a sizable amount of the country's energy. Work is underway to identify alternative U.S. solutions in nuclear energy and renewables. Washington will also continue to assist in what it called Yerevan's defense transformation through advisory programs, professional military training courses, and defense cooperation. During the visit, Armenia and the United States also signed a Customs Mutual Assistance Agreement, which allows for information sharing to assist in enforcement against customs offenses and illegal trafficking of goods. This comes a few months after Armenia moved to expel Russian border guards from the country's main airport. In related news, at a ceremony at NASA headquarters in Washington today, Armenia became a signatory to the Artemis Accords, a series of non-binding bilateral commitments the United States has with dozens of other countries around the world. The accords establish a framework for cooperation in civil exploration and peaceful use of the Moon, Mars, and other astronomical objects. Prime Minister Pashinyan sent a congratulatory message to Russian President Vladimir Putin today to mark Russia Day, saying he hopes the country's relations develop further. I am sure that the centuries-old relations between Armenia and Russia, based on the unshakable principles of equality and respect for the interests of the peoples of both countries, will continue to develop constructively, Pashinyan wrote. He similarly congratulated Russian Prime Minister Mikhail Mishustin on the occasion, citing the economic, scientific, technical, trade, and humanitarian fields as particular ones for continued development. Notably left out of that list is defense, despite the two countries both being members of the Collective Security Treaty Organization, a Kremlin-led military bloc. Furthermore, at today's press conference, Pashinyan stated Armenia would eventually leave the CSTO when the authorities deem it necessary. Earlier this week, Russia's foreign ministry demanded that Armenia must pay its annual financial obligations to the organization. Earlier this year, Armenia froze its membership but did not formally leave, and last month made it clear it would no longer make financial contributions. Armenia has been very critical of the alliance for failing to come to its aid when attacked by Azerbaijan multiple times since the end of the 2020 Nagorno-Karabakh war. And finally, the CivilNet number of the day is 516. That's because the last Russian peacekeepers fully withdrew from Nagorno-Karabakh today, according to Azerbaijan's defense ministry. That's 516 days ahead of schedule, as their 5-year deployment was initially set to end next November. With the ethnic cleansing of Armenians from Nagorno-Karabakh last September, it was difficult for Russia to justify their continued presence there. And as always, please follow CivilNet for the latest news and independent reporting from our contributors on the ground here in Armenia.